I cashed, right? This is 3 straight weeks now, I
Dude,
believe.
you are on an absolute heater in the listener league. And I love that. Like, we hadn't even started the segment yet, and people were like, guys, hit the like button. Quick, Jake's going to yell at us. It's just the best thing, man. You're just a bully, but in the best ways. Quarterback locks of the week. We're going to start at the top with Lamar Jackson. He's 8,400 on FanDuel at Chicago. And then if we did want to pay down, we have Jalen Hurts at 7,700 on FanDuel versus New Orleans. Tell us why you like Lamar to start.
Yeah, actually, I found a third. Well,
Let's
because
hear it.
Reeves was taking forever, so I had some extra time. I found a third person I like this week.
I mean, you know as well as I do that Reeves is going to go and he's going to give us the goods, and there's no stopping him.
There isn't. You know what? The Bears, even if Mac's back, Mac's actually a huge loss for their run defense, and that includes Lamar Jackson. But really what it comes down to is I don't want to say I guarantee this is going to affect one way or another, but the Marquise Brown not being 100% and still iffy today means, you know what, maybe we need Lamar Jackson to do a little bit more running. But either way, whether it's Marquise Brown is out there or not, Rashad Bateman's done enough and has just been good since he's been on the field. Mark Andrews has been good. This passing offense has been good. And the best part of the running game is Lamar Jackson. And if you're going to give me Lamar Jackson and for the rushing upside, I mean, like, look at this game. Like, even with Marquise Brown, you're going to get a free touchdown. You might get 2 free touchdowns from Lamar Jackson the way he's been running this season, and then the passing on top of it. It's really what it came down to is the fact of, I know everybody's going to be on Josh Allen. Everybody's going to go to Dak Prescott in the Kansas City game. And I'm saying, you know what? Instead of doing that, I'm going to go the side way because people see Bears and still might think otherwise. And it's not. The Bears defense is not something to be worried. And he's got the red number next to it. That's opponent rank is not the real, this. The strength of schedule when it comes down to opponent. The Bears are not the 7th toughest for quarterbacks.
I'm with you on that. Do you have any concerns about like the yards per attempt is down over the last 4 or 5 weeks? He's only thrown for multiple touchdowns a couple times this year. Is like the rushing equity that we get that's what he is, right? And that's always going to be kind of what you get from him.
No, not at all. He scores 20 plus points most in every single game on top of it. He just got a 30-point game in there. And that's actually why
because if it does go the other way, then the ceiling's even higher, basically.
Right. And the other part about this is because as what we see in DFS and fantasy world in general is recency bias, people are going to remember the Miami game and be like, oh my God, what happened? And this is now I'm going to get Lamar Jackson at 2% rostership. Yeah, that's the third part that I was going to bring into this.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that he's an amazing play. He's popping in a ton of optimals earlier in the week. But if you are trying to get up to any of these Kansas City or Dallas players, it's not that easy to get Lamar into your lineup. So if we did want to pay down to Jalen Hurts, 7,700, kind of similar, right? Like he hasn't really been scoring a ton on the ground with how much more they've been running it. Yeah, so he's like the Lamar Jackson light in some ways, right?
And he does have the tougher matchup. It's funny that, you see the Saints, and since Marshawn Lattimore's been back, Marshawn Lattimore's playing like he was 2 years ago, where we're talking about if Jay Alexander was healthy, if we're talking about the top corners in the league, that Marshawn Lattimore is in that conversation. Top 5 is in erasing players from games. There's teams that are smart enough to get around him and away from him. The good news about it is what's the Eagles' best weapon? It's a big play threat. That's the one thing you can hope to get with the speed of Devonta Smith. But on top of that, that's not the strength of Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts' strength, for fantasy purposes, is Lamar Jackson, is that he's going to run. And then worst case scenario is get garbage time. The only reason the reason I found a third was twofold. Is it's like the more I thought about the Jalen Hurts is more of what if the Saints grind this game down. And then fourth quarter garbage time isn't even that great because it's just the amount of plays. So I'll give you the third that I even tell you before this, and I'm going to drop down another $700. I was surprised to see him this low. Tua against the Jets. Yep. Everybody against the Jets, and Tua, who I don't know why they didn't just play Tua with how healthy he looked. Like, why did you even roll out Jacoby Brissett if he looked that good coming off the bench, the finger and all that type of stuff? But
that's the weirdest game.
Tua looked good. Tua's facing the Jets. Tua will run, not of the Hurts level. You're getting maybe a half of a touchdown with him, but I love this spot for Tua, and I have a feeling that's where my lineup might head, honestly, because you know what I've got looking at for tight end. By the way, real quick, Chris, I would bring Barkley into the picture, but she just finished eating a bone for 2 hours, so she's sleeping, unfortunately.
Yeah, we got to get a dog meetup at some point. Mine's asleep right now as well.
When was the last time you were on the West Coast? Or West Coast, East Coast? I'm on the... What the hell
I'm never over. If anything, I'm going the other direction. Like, I'll be in Arizona for Thanksgiving.
I know, that's why I was thinking of it, because I was thinking you head west all the time.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. So I don't know. At some point, we'll definitely have to make that work. I'm with you though on Tua because he is smashed. Like some of these like cupcake matchups that he's had this year, like even as chalk, like he's really gotten there in a lot of them, right? So this is another amazing spot. Gesicki, we run him out like a wide receiver at the tight end. I'm in on that. Jalen Waddle is too cheap. Like there's a lot of stuff that makes sense for sure with Tua. Let's move on to the running back position. Your running back locks of the week. I mean, the chalk at 7K is going to be AJ Dillon, right? I'll let you touch on him quickly.
Yeah, there's not really much more to say. I actually tuned in right as Reeves and you were talking about him, and I'll be honest, it's Dearness Johnson before that, and Dearness Johnson smashed in his spot. James Conner last week, even with Colt McCoy, got the touchdown to save his day. And the difference is AJ Dillon was already doing work with Aaron Jones, and unlike James Conner, wasn't so touchdown reliant. And guess what? He doesn't have Colt McCoy. He has Aaron Rodgers. Hell, he doesn't even have Baker Mayfield. He has Aaron Rodgers. He has the Packers offense. It's against Minnesota, which is a great opportunity on top of it for running backs do well against the Vikings plenty of times this year. We don't need to spend too much time on it. I will differentiate my lineup elsewhere. AJ Dillon, you hate the term. I do. It's cliche at this point, but he is the free square this week. Just don't overthink it. Unless you're in the mega size tournaments, there's no way I'm getting away from AJ Dillon.
Yeah, so we're looking at the Sims right now, runthesims.com. If you use promo code Holka, you can get 10% off. If you're a tier 2 or tier 3 member of the channel, you get 20% off. But what it basically does is it simulates the slate 10,000 times, gives you a percentage of that player hitting the optimal lineup. AJ Dillon, the number one optimal rate player as of now. So if we weren't, I guess if we're going to lock in Dillon, let's talk about a couple other guys. Joe Mixon, 7,600 at the Raiders. I mean, this is one of those guys too that like FanDuel doesn't really want to price him up more, but I mean, the ceiling is still very high, right?
It is. And I'll tell you right now, I already put him because the conversation you and I had last week about the 4 o'clock, I had all 1 o'clock games until we made that last second tweak.
Yep.
I already put Joe Mixon in the flex because I had a lot of 1 o'clock guys again this week. Just that's what happens. There's only 3 games at 4 p.m. this week. And one of them was Dallas, Kansas City. And you know me, when there's a game like Dallas and Kansas City, hey, 3 weeks in a row, I'm on a bender or a heater or whatever you want to call it right now. It's like, I don't
bender
love,
or heater, either works.
Yeah, I don't love chasing the chalk game like that when there are so many pieces that you have to pay up for. And that's kind of
the difference, man. They're so expensive. We were just talking about like the Sims. Like there's not a lot of Kansas City and Dallas players in it because they're so expensive and the value is not good on this slate, right? So you can't really even overstack that game as of now because there's just not enough good value. Like AJ Dillon, 7K, he's not free, right? So I'm with you.
No, and that's the biggest thing about it. So the Joe Mixon situation is, I mean, you just saw the Giants when they played the Raiders, is you just beat the Raiders on the ground. And Devontae Booker smash against the Raiders. So you're telling me Joe Mixon, who, while healthy, I mean, there's been a lot of questions about his health through the years and even this year, but while healthy is on the short list of guys out there for 80+% of the time. So Cincinnati Bengals against the Raiders, which is also a game, if you look at both sides of it, we do expect. Should it be that far from Dallas and Kansas City on the offensive potential? Whether it hits it is the question. Of course, it's going to come down to quarterback play on both sides, but there is plenty of potential in this game. I do like Joe Mixon. I was looking at the optimal lineup. I was surprised about my next running back being there. I thought it was going to be on the outs on the next running back.
I mean, I was kind of surprised as well, but maybe, again, there's just not a lot of cheap options this week. So David Montgomery, he's 6,800 versus Baltimore.
I mean,
not a ton of touches last week, but 53 of 62 offensive snaps. Tell us why you like him.
In the first game back, coming back early from a potential, what they thought would be the injury through their bye, with Herbert playing well in front of them, which tells you all they need to know about. This is something for seasonal. I brought this up and I said you can present this going forward from anybody. And I said the same thing about if Barkley would have come back before the Giants bye. When you have the lead option playing well, even at wide receiver, when you have a lead option playing well and the guy who was the lead is coming back and he's coming back early with a bye right behind him. Like if Aaron Jones came back next week, that means the Packers are throwing him right back into his job because why else are you doing it? And that was the whole point about David Montgomery. Mm-hmm. So the fact that they gave him that workload, David Montgomery, the Ravens aren't a favorable matchup. They're not the worst in the world. I heard Reeves talking about is they do have a lot of zero yard stuffs. But the big thing is the reason why they are also exploitable is because when you stack the box, people know that like people who've dove into fantasy in general the past couple of years should understand this is because it's coming from the football side of things. Running backs actually love stack boxes. It hurts for you don't get a lot of runs. Like you're probably not coming out of the game with a 4.5 yards per carry, but they love it because you make one person miss and you're gone. And that's really what they like about it is, yeah, you're not getting guys at the second and third level hits and having to break 5 tackles. You just break one. So the question is, can you break the one? But that's why at 6,800, that's why I like it. 6,800 for 80% plus volume, and he just breaks 1 or 2. It's going to be, he'll be a slate breaker. There you go.
Can you say the same thing about CEH if he does play this week? Because like obviously they have their bye, so they could hold him out. But if he's out there this week, like he's probably ready to go. I guess Darrell Williams has worked his way in, but I'm not a CEH guy, so that's why I'm asking everyone the CEH question because like I'm trying to like I guess find any sort of cheap play in that game. But I don't know, man. If they're bringing him back before the bye, you'd think he's healthy though, right?
I think he's healthy. The difference is with CEH is before he was even hurt. He wasn't getting that workload though.
Sure.
Is that he was getting siphoned away. There's 2 games with 100 rushing yards and 2 games with 40 rushing yards. And if you look at the game log, 2, 3 targets. The targets weren't a high volume. We were actually having a conversation back at that time of like, man, we all wish Edwards-Helaire would get more touches. They was already getting taken away, and Darrell Williams has looked good. And the biggest thing about it too is that Kansas City finally snapped back offensively last week, and a big part of Darrell Williams. I do think if Edwards-Helaire plays, he could conceivably be the lead, but unlike David Montgomery, where it's 80%, he could be the lead in a 55-45. It's just, kind of like the Broncos situation.
No doubt. By the way, I want to ask you guys a quick favor as the viewers. RateThisPodcast.com/The Joe Holka Show. If you get a second, please leave me a rating and review for the podcast. That would really help me out. Wide receiver locks of the week. Brandon Cooks, he's 6,600 at Tennessee. We talked about him earlier. Jalen Waddle, he's 6,700 against the Jets this week. Both these guys kind of mid-range wide receivers, but again, roster construction is kind of leading you that way this week, right, Jake?
It really is, and it's been kind of hit or miss for Brandon Cooks. Tyrod Taylor's soonly it was healthy-ish, and then gets the bye on top of it. Brandon Cooks has been out there multiple games. I think it's 4 or 5 games with double-digit targets. And really, I think in I think it was all but one, he hit double digits. He hit 14, 15, 16, 17 points, so like in that range. He hasn't had the 20-plus point game yet, but if you're looking for the opportunity to do it against the Titans, have been destroyed by wide receivers this year. Oh, by the way, what just happened last week? 3 wide receivers from one team being the Saints hitting double digits. So, hey, Brandon Cooks can go out there and do it. Yeah, this is looking for this mid-range, if I could get the words out, mid-range price. Yes, they are hard. But I'll tell you what, for the $100 more, as you just mentioned, in the same situation, Jalen Waddle against the Jets. And if we're doing the Tua thing, Waddle's volume until Will Fuller or Devontae Parker come back is just smash, 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 smash. I'm like, even if you told me he was going up against the Saints, I don't care. The volume is just, it's the Brandon Cooks volume, but it's with the better offense, a better quarterback.
Yeah, the Waddle thing, I mean, I've played him a decent amount this year, I feel like. He just hasn't been scoring touchdowns, which is not great for FanDuel. He's not like that prototypical, like, big body wide receiver that would be like a touchdown scorer, but he has so much speed. Like, even if he's getting all of these touches in the middle of the field, like, there's going to be one of these weeks where Waddle just breaks a long one off of, like, even one of these dump-offs, right? So at that point, the volume, the upside, I think, just from like after the catch makes a ton of sense at 6,700. Let's move on to the tight end.
He had it against Jacksonville, didn't he? That was his
Jacksonville
game,
was
right?
the 2 touchdown game, 13 targets, but yeah, he has 70 yards in that game, 2 touchdowns. So yeah. He does, I guess, have a little bit. He's just not being used in the red zone at all either, Jake. Like, he has, like, I mean, over half his games this year, he hasn't even have a receiving yards target in the red zone. So I do have some concerns there, but cheap enough to where, and the stack just makes so much sense, I think, if adding Gesicki to it. If we do want to move to the tight end lock of the week, Mike Gesicki, 6,300. He's very cheap. Obviously, the Jets, not good, as we've been basically discussing this entire segment. Also, Cole Kmet, if you wanted to move all the way down 5,100 versus Baltimore, I think Kmet might be a little bit more popular on DraftKings than on FanDuel, but let's start with Gesicki.
Yeah, Gesicki, going back, I was pulling it up to remember correctly at the Jacksonville game. If he had 100 yards, and he did, that was his one game with over 100, and they still 9, despite Jalen Waddle having what he did in that same game. So I'm not that concerned about, this is another go back to Lamar Jackson recency bias. Give me Gesicki coming off a goose egg, please. I will take it at the low ownership. I will take it on the fact that, what was it? I feel like his price was higher against Baltimore, and he still had 7 targets in that game. It was just an off game for him, and I'll take a lot of players of that talent. To be honest with you, I actually, in my mind, initially thought George Kittle would go against Jacksonville, but what's the main difference between Kittle and Gesicki at this point? And it's $500 savings. So the Komet thing is just easy. How many times have we said it? Start your tight ends against the Ravens. Period. Right. Done. That's that simple. And the real fact about it is Justin Fields. I mean, if you want to throw him in the Jalen Hurts conversation, I'm just not ready to trust him just yet. I love what I see. You know, I'm a Justin Fields fan.
Yep.
I just want to see a little bit more of it. I might, if I'm running out a bunch of lineups, I probably will have a lineup out there, but it is Baltimore. That's the little bit of hesitancy I get, but I can see a Hurts, Mooney, and basically Komet version of the Tua stack, or even a Hurts stack. And what's the big difference between them, honestly? I mean, Komet's been a little, again, there's the lower ceiling, but, if Komet finds the end zone, I'm seeing if he scored this year. He hasn't even scored this year. But he's coming off 8-6 and 87. So, that's the thing is for the conversation about Jalen Hurts. This is the Tua, honestly. It's the Tua Hurts conversation on the Bears side of things. And again, start your tight ends against the Ravens. Everybody against the Ravens.
So before we get to the stack, Jake, I'm curious your thoughts on Myles Gaskin, because in theory we built an onslaught here. We could go Gaskin, we could go. So you're not even gonna let me finish it. So we're not doing Gaskin. Why not? Because I think he's gonna be popular at that price.
Because he's worst place. I did Pat's show earlier this week, and for everybody that watches, Pat knows Mark Ingram was worst place. He and I together made Jared Cook worst place for times, and there's a reason why those guys became worst place, and we hate them. And Jared Cook was actually, I think Jared Cook was the first one we ever did. This is why. Because when they have a great matchup and they're supposed to show up, they don't. When they're supposed to be benched, they go off. And then the thing is they'll go off for 2 weeks in a row, and you're like, oh, I can trust them, whether it's a good or bad matchup. And then they disappear. You cannot predict Gaskin. It's a great matchup. I'm not saying that. Can Gaskin hit this week? Absolutely. I am done with Gaskin. He is dead to me. He can go 20 points in a row, 3 weeks in a row. Good for everybody. If you play him, I am not touching him. Just like I'm not touching the Bills backfield. No, you do it. I won't.
Jake is officially back. I want you guys to pause this video, and I want you to let me know in the comments your lock of the week. We are going to build a FanDuel team. This team will go in the listener league, FanDuel.com/Holka. $5 rake free, big prizes. This is a 3 max tournament. So I guess what's nice is we're not going to have Gaskin on this team, and it sounds like we're going to be stacking up Tua, right?
Yes, we will stack up to, hey, good for everybody. I think Gaskin's probably going to be double-digit rostership. So There you go. You stack, I'll stack the Tua side of it, and I'll laugh. Hopefully, when Gaskin gets you 3 points.
It's nice that it has still has the Q next to Tua, the finger, all that stuff. People don't want to click that, man. So we got Tua. Are we doubling him with Gesicki and Waddle, or are we picking one?
Yes, okay. Waddle, Gesicki. Let's do it. All three of them.
Waddle,
stack them
Gesicki. Up. Remember when I was playing Gesicki at Stone Min 3 years ago, and everyone was giving me crap about it because he was this freak athlete. He was a rookie or something, and he was getting me zeros all the time. We've come a long way with Mike Gesicki. So do you want to bring it back with anyone on the Jet side, or are we ignoring that?
I was thinking Crowder, and I could see the Matthew Berry effect going out there because he tweeted about it, and the fact that you attack the Dolphins over the middle of the field and not outside, and that's why I don't like Corey Davis this week. But let's save that one and see what we end up with. I don't want to push that back. I'll tell you what, we're either starting next week's show with congratulations, everybody who started Gaskin, I was wrong, or ha 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 in your face.
Yeah. I guess we didn't talk about defense, but I'm not sure if anyone stands out. We've been talking a little bit about.
Oh, I do like one.
Washington at Carolina was the one that we keep talking about. The other one at the high end. Yeah. Oh, you like the Carolina side? All right, let's hear it.
I like Carolina. Let's hear it. This guy right here. I love Heineke. I love Heineke as a player. I love my ODU boy. But I also love, if I'm looking at defenses, I love the fact that he does not know how to turn it down from a 10. I've said that a couple times on your show, and it's paid off a lot of times. He's just too aggressive. He is Daniel Jones. He's too aggressive, leads to turnovers, leads to sacks, and I want sacks and turnovers. That's what I'm aiming for. So I actually like the Carolina side of things, especially Cam Newton sparks this offense, and all of a sudden that he feels like he needs to be more aggressive, and he doesn't have Logan Thomas coming back, and likely doesn't have Ricky Seals-Jones as a safety blanket. Still no Curtis Samuel. Like, he's going to be forcing the ball, I have a feeling, a lot this week.
Yeah, I think that makes a ton of sense. And I guess if you wanted to pay up even more, I like Tennessee a lot against Houston for all of the obvious reasons.
Chalk.
I think they will be. Yeah, I mean, just, man, Houston's offensive line has been absolutely horrendous. And say we want about Tennessee, they will bring pressure. You're just going to have to pay for it this specific slate. So
I have a feeling that game might get sneaky ugly. Houston's pass rush has been better of late, and I feel like that might be an ugly type of 17-10 game and surprise us.
I'm not sure what to do with A.J. Brown at this point, too, because he's like a couple weeks in a row now. He's been like that kind of like cool, lower-owned wide receiver, and if you really wanted to mini-stack it with Cooks or something like that, you could. But yeah, I guess I have concerns about the game.
That's so tempting.
I know. Yeah, so like the price is pretty good, and I think most of the guys around him. Let's just look at it quickly because I'm curious. So we have in that range of A.J. Brown, Marquise Brown, Amari Cooper. So I guess maybe people are probably just trying to get up to this next tier, essentially, or get up to the Dallas guys, basically. So
yeah, I'll watch how this goes. You know, if we're getting mid-low single-digit rostership in A.J. Brown, I'll take the flyer again at 7,200. It's more about the price and the fact that I love AJ Brown, and any week can be an AJ Brown week.
Speaking of AJ, I know you're playing AJ Dillon, so I'm putting him in your roster. Also, Are you going with either one or both
David
of
Montgomery?
That's what I figured. Okay, because that gives you a lot of flex. If you're not playing Gaskin, Montgomery gives you a ton of flexibility at running back. So, did we already lock in Panthers D, or do you want to just see where this one takes us?
No, I'll put in Panthers D.
Okay. So 7,300 the rest of the way. So you have tons of firepower here. What are you thinking?
You know what? You know what I'm thinking? I'm thinking Devontae Adams at 8,400.
I think you can play both. Honestly, I really do. Someone was saying before that maybe they cannibalize each other's touchdowns because AJ Dillon is 7K. He's not free, but I think that Green Bay could just absolutely boat race Minnesota.
How many times have you been able to play Dalvin Cook and Justin Jefferson?
Exactly.
Like, that's really what it comes to. See, but that leans me to wanting to bring back into that game, but I still really like Joe Mixon at 7,600, Jefferson 79.
Yeah, I don't think you can. You can't play Mixon. You could play Mixon, and then you have a 6,100, but then you can't get up to the wide receivers you'd want. I imagine. Yeah, you're right.
I can't. I mean, if I play Mixon, I could play Renfro.
You could
in that same game.
Let's do the mini.
Back Crowder.
Does that work salary-wise? Let's see.
Yeah, it does. I just put him in.
And then I got 8K in here.
0.
I got 8K in here left. What did I miss? So right now I
have...
You
don't have Devontae Adams in there.
Oh, Adams. That'll do it.